Okay, I have with me Gavin King. He is known from in the Java community, especially for many things. But one of them is Hibernate. What is Hibernate?
So Hibernate is an object relational mapping solution. So it's a library that helps you with persistence in your Java applications, especially with persistence to relational databases. More recently, it's grown to encompass a bit more than that. With extensions like Hibernate Search and Hibernate OGM and Hibernate Validator. So it now encompasses kind of a bit more of the whole field of how to manage entities in a Java application.
You're the creator of Hibernate. Where ideas like that comes to your mind? I don't know. You go skiing, or I don't know. You are eating lunch, and then there is this flash in your head. Okay, we should do it that way.
I think most of the ideas which have resulted in the best products, best projects I've done in my career have come out of arguments. So Hibernate evolved out of an argument with my boss at the time over whether we should be using EJB entity beans to do persistence in our in a Java EE 1.4. I'm not sure. I don't really recall. And I guess Hibernate was a way to show a different approach that potentially a better approach than what we had at the time with entity beans. The irony of it is that I think I convincingly won that argument when eventually I joined the EJB expert group in EJB 3 timeframe, and the JPA specification evolved out of that. Then for example, my current project Salon, really has its roots in an argument I had with in some debates, argument perhaps the wrong word, with a good friend of mine from Atlanta, Obi Fernandez, who's a big Ruby head and was for a time very twisting everybody's ear about how wonderful Ruby was. And I think Salon was some kind of attempt to answer some of the challenges and criticisms coming from the dynamic language community about Java.
Your name, your person, is also known from the SIM framework. How this framework can be helpful for the attendees?
Well, SIM's interesting because SIM's gone through a bit of an evolution. SIM started out as an application framework that attempted to work around some of the limitations of Java EE 5, I want to say, and kind of bring together some of the pieces of the Java EE 5 platform better to smooth over some of the rough edges that we hadn't been able to address within the JCP expert groups at the time. And so that's how it started, and eventually, the experience we got with SIM, and some other, ideas coming from other directions. For example, some ideas from Google Juice, and formed the basis of a specification that we led called Context and Dependency Injection (CDI), and that was the vehicle for bringing I guess really properly solving the kind of the rough edges in that we targeted and we had been targeting with SIM. At that point, SIM in a sense became sort of SIM in its original incarnation became irrelevant because some of the main problems it had been targeting were now solved within the platform in Java EE6, and that's been an ongoing process. So even I think in EE7 you see some further crystallization of things around the new model in CDI. So Seam went through a bit of a identity crisis reorganization into more of a set of modules for Java EE for based around the CDI model. So that's been an interesting evolution, and hopefully Seam is still that Seam in its new incarnation is still a useful thing for people.
Nowadays, you are taking care of the Ceylon project, the Ceylon language. Ceylon. How this language can be helpful for the attendees, for the participants.
Participants. For users?
Yeah, for users.
Okay. So it's always very, very hard to come and start talking about a new programming language and why is this the best programming language ever? What makes this so much better than everything else? And I mean it's very difficult because the truth is that most programming languages have more in common than they have different to each other, and the answer to the question is what's different is 1,000 little things, right? A thousand small things and some subtly different perspectives on problems that in the end make the whole way of coding flow in a slightly different way, right? So but when we generally what is it in Ceylon that Ceylon has that made us want to do the project in the first place? I mean, I guess the key things are cross-platform, by where the word platform we mean virtual machine. So and when we say cross-platform, we mean JVM, JavaScript VMs, potentially in the future other VMs. For example, I can imagine, I'm just speculating here, but I can imagine in future we may have an implementation of Ceylon for the Dart virtual machine or for some other virtual machine. We've looked into Ceylon for Mono, though that so far hasn't gone anywhere. So cross-platform is a big deal. The ability to be able to take your code and reuse it on the client side, and the second big deal is modularity. The point I make is that modularity is or should be at the core of everything we do. The whole purpose of the discipline of software engineering is modularity, and yet curiously, until recent times, almost no programming language has had modules as a first-class construct within the language. At some stage, historically, there was a confusion between the notion of objects and the notion of modules, but that confusion was cleared up rather a long time ago. So it's strange that that lack of modularity still persists. So Ceylon is kind of the is the first or one of the first programming languages to really build in modularity into the whole ecosystem from I need to be very careful about using words like first. Ceylon has a very advanced way of integrating modularity into the whole ecosystem, from the compiler to the IDE to the runtime to the community module repository, are all into the language definition itself, so that everything works together, so that you obviate the need for separate systems for managing modules. I'm thinking of things like Maven or OSGI. We will have interoperation with those existing facilities that exist for the Java platform. But if you're working purely in the Ceylon world, which probably at the moment nobody's going to be doing. But to the extent that you're working purely in the Salon world, there's no need to interact with complex external systems because everything understands modules, and that's what it's all about. And modularity enables some very interesting things. For example, it's one of the enabling technologies behind the cross-platform nature of the language. The idea that I can have a minimal, the idea that that everything's based around a very core, minimal language module that is truly cross-platform, and then other modules that are form part of the SDK are either well-defined cross-platform modules, or they're well-defined JVM-specific modules, or they're well-defined JS-specific modules. It helps me design and structure my application in such a way that it's well defined what bits of my application run where.
To be honest, next question might sound a little bit strange, but Salon, first thought that came to my mind is the name of the island. I have even done any research about that. So now it's called Sri Lanka, I think, and also the Java is the name of the island. I don't know, developers are in some kind of a love in islands. Where did the name the Salon come from?
Right. Well, I mean, it's a homage. It's a tribute to Java, and the team of people I work with are big fans of Java, and that doesn't mean that we're not also fans of what's great in other programming languages. When I loved working in Smalltalk, and I've no doubt that if I would have ever been lucky enough to have the chance to write code in Anger in ML, or then I would have loved working in ML, and then there's other languages I like too, but we've spent most of our professional careers writing Java code. We think Java's an excellent language. That's not to say it's without flaws. Obviously, we think it has flaws that are serious enough to contemplate building a new platform and a new language around the VM. But we think it's an excellent. We think it's a great language on balance. And so the name of Salon is a homage to Java. It's paying dues, paying respect to where we're coming from as developers, and the people who made Java into such a phenomenon.
As I've read in your biography, you work for Red Hat. How it is to work for such a big company, for a corporation? What are the advantages, and what are disadvantages? What problems you have to deal with, and in what issues it's much better?
So I'm not going to pretend that working for a large company is necessarily the ideal thing for a person like me. It has, its frustrations. But Red Hat is a good company. It's a company which is ethical, which cares, which has, a vision of open source and wants to be, how can I say, which has values which go beyond making money, right? And I mean, and it's very easy to tell which companies in the industry are like that. I mean, I worked very closely with Sun for a long time, and Sun were a company like that. And even though Sun were a very large company, Sun were a very ethical company. They cared about what they were doing, and Red Hat's a company like that. And I was going to say, I mean, the other advantage of working for a large company is that Red Hat were able to put the money and resources and behind this project which we're working on. We would not have been able to take on a project as big as Salon without the backing of a company which could put the investment behind that project for a period of years without, expecting to see, something delivered. It's taken us 3-4 years to deliver this, this 1.0 release.
I asked about the question for purpose because it's quite interesting for the young developers who are shaping their career, who are choosing whether to go to a small company, whether to open something own, or whether to go to a corporation. Maybe we will switch now to the JDD conference. You attend different Java conferences, different developer conferences dedicated for developers. How is JDD placed or situated among the other conferences? How this Polish event is situated among international events you participate in?
I mean, I guess that's hard for me to say, in a sense, because I've only just started attending the European conferences. For a long time it was simply, when I was based in the United States and then in Mexico, it was too difficult for me to come, back and forth to Europe. I have enjoyed my time here, and I enjoyed the audience we had today. You always want to, what most matters to us as speakers at a conference like that is, getting a little bit of interaction, a little bit of feedback from the people who come to the talk, and seeing, getting a little bit of idea of what they're thinking, and how they're responding, and we definitely, I definitely had that today, and that matters. Really what we come for is to talk about our, about our technology, and get something back from the people who are here. And I thought that it was a very, it was a very nice crowd, and so that's what matters to me. And honestly, I'm not much of a great fan of conferences necessarily, but of jugs. So I may be the wrong person to ask about about conferences.
If you were to summarize this edition of JDD in one sentence, what would you say?
In one sentence, you're putting me on the spot here. I can't imagine, man.
Okay, I'm gonna ask another question. Are we gonna meet next year? Are you planning to come to JDD?
If you guys invite me here next year, I'll definitely come back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for this short interview. I had Gavin with me. Thank you for this. Thank you for this talk. Thank you for coming to the JDD. I invite you to our YouTube profile. Gavin presentation will be published there, so you can go through and find out more about the Ceylon language. Thank you for this talk, and please watch for the next interviews which will come, which could be found on the YouTube profile in a few days.